Hey Brad, how are you doing? How you doing today? I appreciate Mr. Bradley Egenberg, who's runs Egenberg APLC and is a partner at the Law Center. Brad, where are you today? Where are you
I'm
located?
at the moment, I'm in my home in New Orleans, Louisiana.
I, um, as you know, I was living in Louisiana before this happened, and then I packed my kids and wife in the car, and we fled up to the Catskill Mountains to be with my in-laws. But tell me, like, being on the ground there in New Orleans, what's New Orleans like right now?
Well, downtown's it's pretty much a ghost town, actually. There's really nobody around. It's it's really empty. I mean, palpably empty. It's kind of like Katrina, but even more deserted, really, because during Katrina you still had um, I mean, you don't see any, obviously you don't see any kind of destruction, but um, during Katrina, there was a rebuilding process that started right away. So there was a lot of action on the ground. Right now, it's really deserted in downtown.
That's tough to hear. Do you think this will be a situation like Katrina where they'll have to be rebuilding in New Orleans afterwards and like picking up the pieces, or do you think that it'll be, easier to come back because there was no physical damage to properties?
Well, I think that New Orleans is going to be impacted pretty heavily by this because we do have a lot of tourism. We have a lot of conventions that come here. This is not an economy that's based on this is not an economy that's based on natural resources. It's not an economy that's based on manufacturing or high tech or something like that. I mean, this economy is based on it's based on tourism. It's based on going out and having a great time. And so um, obviously that's exactly what the coronavirus is incompatible with.
Yeah, you're talking about jobs. You're talking about bars, restaurants. Do you think that the majority of of bars and restaurants will open back up, or do you think that there'll be like pockets and holes, like you walk down Midtown Manhattan and
Hmm.
retail? There's pockets of holes, there. Do you think that that'll be the same in New Orleans?
Um, look, I think that it will reopen. I think it will reopen. I think I'll put it to you like this. I think that people are very eager to get back to work in New Orleans. I've spoken to friends of mine and to colleagues and to clients that work in the hospitality industry. I think that a lot of people are very eager to get back to work. But the question is going to be, are tourists ready to get on a flight? And are they ready to stay in a hotel? Are they ready to go into a crowded bar? Or is the social distancing going to take a little while to fade away from the minds of and the habits of travelers? So I think on the part of the locals here, I think the New Orleanians are definitely ready to get back to it. But I mean, it's speculative to say if people are ready to just go back to it or not. I don't know.
How are the streets uptown and like in the park? Are people going out with their kids, or most people abiding by and staying home?
No, I think people are pretty good about staying home, and I think that even the people that are out are very respectful of the social distance.
Yeah, I've read articles and I've seen it, in practice as we walk around. Everyone who you walk by is more friendly than usual with that smile or under the mask because everyone's just yearning for social interaction
Sure,
after distancing
sure,
for so long. So
sure.
it's definitely an
Yeah,
interesting time. But
they're distant and they're friendly at the same time.
yeah.
It's really interesting. It's both those things.
So let's dive into. I mean, tell me about a little bit about your career, and I know that you run Egenberg APLC in New Orleans. Brad and I happen to share an office building. I'm Herald PR and Emerald Digital are in that office building, due to you. But why don't you tell me a little bit about your legal career, and how you founded Egenberg APLC, and then why you also helped found the Law Center.
Well, the firm is it's a small law firm that's focused only on plaintiffs' personal injury work. We've done some other plaintiffs' work as well. We worked very heavily on the BP oil spill when the spill was in the Gulf of Mexico. We helped a lot of businesses, particularly that were injured by the spill. We're active in some class action work and some mass tort. So we have we've done some work on the Roundup lawsuit against Bayer and also on the East Shore lawsuit. So we are involved in those spaces, but primarily it's plaintiff's personal injury And that means suing insurance companies. That's what we do. So whether that is from a motor vehicle accident, and most cases involve motor vehicle accidents,
Mhm.
or even if it involves, really any other kind of injury to a person, that's exactly the kind of work that we do.
And what inspired you to get into that field of law?
Well, it's a strange thing. It's kind of like it finds you, because at first I actually worked, I did a lot of work in criminal court in New Orleans. And then from time to time, I'd have a client call me and tell me, Mr. Egenberg, I'm injured, and these insurance companies, they won't pay me. And, I wanted to help my existing clients, but then one thing leads to another, and it morphed into a personal injury practice. I still do handle a little bit, just a very, very little bit of criminal work. I have just a handful of cases still going, but really it really emerged from a criminal practice.
And do you find, like, I know, we had Doug Moore on from the Law Center earlier this week, and I asked him the same question, but like you guys get a lot of flack for, representing plaintiffs and going after insurance companies, but many, and Doug said this the same, like, you guys are helping people. Like, someone can get a $35,000 early settlement by themselves, or the insurance company is ignoring them, and you guys can get them, $1 million settlement. Like, you find that, like, that you can contest what people say, and you're helping people, save, helping their lives, helping their families.
Yeah, no, for sure. Look, I'll put it to you like this. The job of an insurance company, I'm going to tell you what the job of an insurance company is. The job of an insurance company is to collect premiums and not to pay claims. That's it. Those two things: collect money and don't pay claims. And so their money, it's going to go somewhere. And that's what people have to understand. All that money that gets pooled together from the premiums, it is going somewhere. And it's either going to their stockholders, it's going to Wall Street, or it's actually going to go to the people that have been injured by their insureds. And so they have a staff, the same way that, I'm a plaintiff's attorney and my job is to get my clients paid. That is my job. They have a staff, and their staff is trained to do one thing, and that is not to pay you. That's what they're trained to do. And once you understand that, I think you understand that you absolutely need a lawyer every time you deal with an insurance company. You need a lawyer every time, with no exception. You need a lawyer every single time.
You're just going to be treated differently, and you'll as a plaintiff, you'll be respected, and know that you're with the real deal.
Well, it lets them know right away that this is serious, and that if you don't want to pay the claim, that we're going to sue you. Some insurers, that's our policy from the outset. We just sue them right away. We don't even open claims, because we know who they are, and they know who we are, and we know that they won't pay us unless we drag them into court. So I think to myself, if they won't pay me, I file thousands of these lawsuits. This is all I do is sue insurance companies on behalf of plaintiffs. And if they won't pay me, then surely they're not going to pay the insureds. And so that's why with some of these companies, we'll get a phone call from the lawyer like, "Hey, Brad, we don't even see a claim number here." And I tell them that's because I didn't open a claim, because I know who your insurance company is, and I know that you people don't pay claims. So why would I open a claim with people who don't pay claims? That doesn't make sense, right? I file lawsuits with people who don't open claims, who people don't pay claims. So let's just cut to the chase. And that's really the policy of our office. Obviously not with every insurer. I mean, some of them you can actually talk to like normal people, but there are those that we know from time and time again that they never pay us. So that's why we just go right ahead and just sue them every time.
Do you ever have a situation where, like, they know you and you know them enough that there's this almost stalemate of like, okay, like, we're going to give you what you want because you're, Egenberg APLC?
I would say some of them know us, some of them do, some of them don't. I mean, it really depends on the circumstance too. I mean, look, if we have a good case and we really have the goods, then, we're going to get paid. Sometimes you take a case and there's a swearing match. Sometimes there's a case where it's red light, green light, and you have one plaintiff saying, look, I'm telling you, it was a red light. And you got the other guy saying it was a green, it was a green, it was a green. And at that point, we're going to just go ahead and have to have a swearing match in court, and that's all you can do. They're not going to pay you if, understandably too. I mean, if you have a factual dispute, that's what court is for. So,
well, you made my next question easier by saying court twice. And I mean, what's it like to be an attorney anywhere in the country, really, with courts closed. Like, what do you do? I mean, I know everyone's home, we're quarantined, but like, how do things get processed? Is it only emergency orders? Like, what's the current situation for practice right now?
Well, let me just say that I'm only licensed in Louisiana. I've only practiced in Louisiana, so I can only speak about my experience right here in Louisiana. But actually, it's really counterintuitive. I thought that with the courts closed that nothing would be accomplished, but I think in the last month, I mean, believe it or not, ever since the coronavirus has struck, my case flow has moved very quickly. I've been able to talk to defense lawyers about getting things expedited. I think that with the courts closed, there's a lot of other things that we can move on to. We've actually had a great experience in the last month with these telephonic Zoom conferences, both with the judges, but then also with the mediators, where sometimes the defendants will say, Brad, look, man, none of us can move the case forward. Why don't we go to private mediation and see if we can't get it done? And, at first I wasn't too sure I wanted to do it, but we've done a couple of them now, and they've been very, very successful. I've been very pleased with the results.
So things are flowing, like settlements are happening, money's flowing.
Oh yeah. I mean, the settlements are definitely happening. I don't know what the motivation is on the part of the insurers. I mean, we can sit here and speculate. I think that part of it is probably because there are backup reserves that are frozen basically behind every claim. They probably want to free it up to experience some more liquidity on the part of their own company. But I mean, this is all voodoo to me. I'm not a professional in the insurance industry. I'm a plaintiff's lawyer. But for whatever reason they want to pay us, and it's been moving for the last month. It's been moving.
I'm really happy to hear that, and I'm sure a lot of people are happy to hear that because
and my clients are particularly happy to hear it because
as an outsider, I thought pause, everything's frozen, but it's good to have.
No.
Okay, so what is your firm like right now? I'm sure I'm working from home. Are you still doing new case intake?
Sure.
What does that look like?
Sure. Well, actually. Sure. I want to finish just mentioning one thing about your last question, which is that it's really to the credit of a lot of the lawyers on the defense bar that these mediations are happening and that things are progressing. I didn't expect it. I really didn't. But the defense bar has been very cooperative ever since the coronavirus.
Has the plaintiff's attorney ever said that? No, I'm kidding.
No, but it's very refreshing. I didn't really, it's very refreshing to see it. But then going on to your next question, which was about the inflow right now, I'll put it to you like this. The inflow is down because there aren't as many people on the roads, obviously. But even in light of that, there are still plenty of lawsuits that are going to be filed as a result of coronavirus. I mean, first of all, there's still people on the roads anyway. I mean, we still have plenty of, people still have to eat, people still need, basic supplies. So the trucks are still on the roads. And as long as trucks are being driven by people, then there will be collisions.
So I was actually thinking about this earlier in preparation. Like, I know you do 18-wheeler accidents, you do automobile accidents, you do airplane accidents, whether that's, something falling on someone, mid-flight or, some other worse incident. In my opinion, it would be, I would think it would be logical that there are less airplane accidents and less suits filed because less people are flying. It's ground to a halt. It's down 95%, air travel, but 18-wheelers are still driving because, and out there because, of the supply chain. Have there been less 18-wheeler accidents because or less airline accidents? Like what have you been seeing?
Well, Warren, we don't call collisions accidents. In my office, we never use the word accident because there are no accidents. So I think what you mean are collisions.
Human error. You mean human error? Yeah.
Right. Acts of negligence on the part of drivers. So there's still collisions on the road. That is true, and we are getting, we're still picking them up, getting those cases. Our practice under the Montreal Convention, that is our airplane collision, our airplane injury practice, let's just say, that has definitely slowed down a lot. But I mean, this is just the nature of things. I mean, obviously, once coronavirus lifts, people are going to want to fly again. It's what we do. We're Americans. We want to visit our friends and family in other cities. We want to conduct business with people in other cities. And so I don't consider that this is the end of, the end of an industry. I think it's just a matter of getting this under control. And then, we're going to return to wanting to see our friends and family in other parts of our country.
Of course. What do you think, if any, coronavirus or, COVID-19, as the disease is called, litigation or cases might stem from this?
Well, I think you're going to see a flood of litigation coming out of it. I mean, for one thing, the obvious thing is going to be the first party insureds. That is businesses that have business interruption insurance. Some of them are going to be covered. Some of them are not. There are virus exclusions in a lot of the policies, but nonetheless, I would encourage anybody who has a business to examine their policy, and more importantly, to have it examined by a competent lawyer, because the policy may exclude virus, it may not exclude virus, but if there's any argument to be had about whether it does or doesn't include the virus, well, then the law in most states, it requires that it be resolved in favor of the insured, that any kind of ambiguity is resolved in favor of the insured. So it's certainly worth having it reviewed by a lawyer. That's the first wave of litigation that obviously we all see coming, is that first party business interruption policy litigation. But then there's other forms of litigation that are going to emerge from coronavirus as well, which is just simply that we all owe each other a duty of care. This is the law. That's what we owe one another. And you're going to have people who will have transmitted this disease to others, and it may be that they did it knowingly, and maybe that they did it unknowingly, but either way, I mean, it is compensable. And so you have cruise ships out there at sea that are just floating at sea with people on board who were sick with coronavirus, and the industry, it just continued to allow more guests to board those vessels. And those are exactly the kinds of lawsuits that you're going to see, where people have been exposed negligently to the coronavirus.
So you think when the ship was sitting in the harbor in Japan, and U.S. In the U.S. and Europe, and in South America, they weren't, sidelining those ships and they were letting people board. Do you think that warrants they're liable?
I think they are, and I think that's greed. That's what it is. There's only one reason why they let those people get on board that vessel, and the reason why it wasn't for anything other than their own greed. It's because they wanted to collect the fees. They didn't want to return the money that was paid to them. They wanted to get those people on board and continue their operation the way it always was. They didn't stop for a minute to think about the exposure and the peril and the damages and the harms and the human losses that these people would suffer getting on board that vessel. And so, yes, I do think it's compensable. And it's not only those people. I think what you're going to find is that it's going to be throughout the hospitality industry. There are going to be hotels that were open where people were there with the coronavirus. They're running air conditioning systems that would carry that virus through the ducts throughout the entire hotel. And they have exposed people negligently, or even worse, knowingly, to the coronavirus. And each and every instance of this, I think, is compensable.
That's and I mean, it's also amazing to hear. This is the first time that I've ever heard that Sue can sue Brad for giving them coronavirus, or even bring some kind of suit. I mean, it just seems like a tremendous amount of litigation will come about because of this.
Look, what I'm trying to tell you is that there are certain risks that people have taken. There's certain risks they haven't. All right. And I'm not talking about the person that, maybe somebody got on the subway next to somebody else and they transferred. That's not what I'm talking about. All right. What I'm talking about are corporations who knew that people that were in their hotels or on their cruise ships were sick. Yep. They hid this information from other people, information that had other people known about it. They wouldn't have boarded that ship. They wouldn't have gone to that hotel. Yeah. And this is the kind of thing which I think is compensable. This is exactly the kind of thing which lawyers are going to pursue on behalf of their clients. My law firm will pursue this on behalf of our clients. We especially expect that in the city of New Orleans.
It's interesting. Also, I was speaking to a doctor who's on the front lines doing testing the other day, and offline, he was saying that if the government can't get testing right, if local municipalities can't get testing right, then it might be incumbent upon corporations to get testing right so that they can get the workforce back. But like that also, presents a whole host of other liabilities. Like, how often are you testing? What's the expense? What's going on? So I mean, it's fascinating to hear, and that's what's coming after the storm, so to speak.
Well, it's the storm after the storm, really, is what it is.
Of course. So now switching gears a little, tell me about how long have you been to New Orleans? I mean, how long have you been in New Orleans, and how did you get there?
Well, I've been in New Orleans for 25 years. I mean, I went to college here at Tulane, and I went to law school here at Tulane, and I've been here ever since.
So I know you're from New Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
So I got to ask you a tough question. Jets or Saints?
Come on, man. Jets.
Oh, okay, fine. But that Superdome it's just such a. I know. And anyone who's a local, even if you're a Jet fan, you fall in love with the Saints as well. And what do you guys do? I know you're home with your family. What are you guys doing day to day? What's your daily routine? How are you getting through it?
My day to day is Peppa Pig with my 3-year-old little boy. We watch lots of cartoons, and we eat ice cream every afternoon. Life is okay under coronavirus and our quarantine. It's we have a comfortable quarantine in the Egenberg home over here.
What's your ice cream of choice and flavor of choice?
Well, it's his choice, obviously. But it depends. Some days he's on Ben and Jerry's vanilla. Some days he's on those mini cornettos. He loves those.
We're suffering the same thing. I woke up this morning.
Uh-huh.
I got an extra 30-minute snooze in, and for the first time ever, I wake up and my daughter is at the kitchen table with ice cream open and a spoon. And I'm like, how did you do that? She did it herself. So she got herself breakfast.
She knows what she likes.
Yeah, exactly. They know what they like. What's been most challenging for you, either personally or business wise during this time? And it's been like 6-7 weeks at this point. We all have challenges, both personal and professionally. What's been most challenging to you?
I mean, I think there are a lot of different challenges during the COVID-19. I mean, working from home, that is in and of itself a challenge. I mean, it's very hard to do this kind of work and to be interrupted. I'm really used to being able to just close the door and do my work. And here I'm just not set up for it in my home to really do that kind of legal work.
So how have you?
I mean, we can't hold depositions. Obviously, that's been very difficult to advance those cases. With some of them are stagnated because we cannot hold depositions in some of the cases. We can't have hearings in front of the court. Sometimes you're waiting on a ruling on a particular motion, and you can't advance the litigation without that ruling. So in federal court, it's actually moved okay. It's actually been fine. The judges have been ruling on the briefs, but in state court, it's it's a struggle.
And before we wrap up, like tell everyone. I was living in New Orleans. I went to Tulane. You went to Tulane. You've been there 25 years. Like tell everyone or share the resilience of the people of New Orleans. Like how New Orleans is going to come back and
No, for sure. New Orleans is not. I mean, look, I could tell you that after Katrina, the city was down. There's no question. I mean, I remember Katrina like yesterday. The National Guard was here. I mean, it was awful. It was terrible. People had died. A very sad situation. The hospitals, just like now, the hospitals were overwhelmed. The hospitals were destroyed. The businesses were beat down bad. I mean, and it's the same situation, with the tourists saying, "Oh my God, we're a tourist-based economy. Who's going to want to come? Who's going to want to come?" But the city made it through. There's something about the city that people want to come here and they want to experience New Orleans. And I fully expect that that's exactly the phenomenon we're going to see again. People are going to want to come back to New Orleans.
Is it because Drew's back for one more year? No.
Well, Drew's back for one more year. The question is the NFL going to be back? That's the real question.
Yeah. Otherwise, NBC. There's more litigation right there.
Yeah. All right. There you go. Exactly.
So, I mean, obviously, the city of New Orleans or the people of New Orleans are incredible and resilient.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Brad, and before we end, let's close with I asked you earlier, but about the law center. Tell me a little bit about the center, what it is. Doug introduced it earlier. But I'd love to, Doug's the CEO. Like, why participate in that? You have a good thing going. You have lots of case flow. Like, what's special about the law center? Building this national platform.
Right. Look, it's a national platform, and it really does a lot to help people. I mean, it's all around the country that normal people that work for a living, they're up against a Goliath. They're up against the insurance industry. These are professionals at not paying ordinary people. They know all the tricks in the book. They'll write a quick check to get a good case resolved. They'll stonewall people. They won't return phone calls. They'll do everything they can not to pay a claim. And so all around the country, normal people are experiencing this. And this was an opportunity to be part of something with other lawyers, with other very, very good lawyers, where we can actually reach out and help normal people to get the compensation that they absolutely deserve from the insurance industry.
Absolutely. So Brad, let me just pop onto Facebook, see if we have any comments on there. And hold on one second. All right. No, I'm always looking for questions, but I'm going to write in the comments that if anyone has any questions for you, that we can always loop back in. But I really appreciate you joining us on a Friday afternoon. Your style, as always, is amazing. I know it's probably too hot in New Orleans, but you're not wearing your vest. But Brad normally is in a 3-piece suit, looking dapper. You should have put on a jacket to match your style, but I figured it was Friday afternoon.
What better time to put on a suit and tie on a Friday afternoon? Right?
Yeah,
come on. Yeah. That's exactly when you put on a suit and tie on a Friday afternoon.
Exactly. But I sincerely thank you so much for taking.
Thank you very much, Warren.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Go enjoy some ice cream, and I'll give my kids.
Will do. Very good. Thank you. Great to see you again. Thank you.